Welcome. My name is Jill Jonathan, and I'm with Red, Wine, and Blue. We are a community of women who use digital media and friend to friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. And one way we do this is through conversation. So oftentimes I will have conversations with my co-host, Jo Carducci, as in JoJo from Jers. It looks like she's joined, so I'll add her. And then we usually have a special guest. And so today our special guest is Sam Schwartz. So we will be talking about America's mass shooting epidemic and why Gen Z is leading the charge to stop it. And thank you, Gen Z. So let's get started. I see both Jo. Makes it much easier. So it looks like they will join in just a minute. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in because we have got to keep talking about this epidemic. There's Sam. Hi, Sam. Welcome.
Hello, hi. How are you guys doing?
Good. Hi, Jo.
Hi.
Hi, Sam.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, it's morning, still here, and I hate that we have to keep talking about this, but we can't turn away, so we have to keep talking about this. So, Sam, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this movement.
Sure. So, thanks for having me on, first of all. So my name is Sam Schwartz, for those of you who don't know me. In 2018, when I was 14 years old, my cousin Alex Schachter was killed in the Parkland shooting, and he was one of 16 victims of that shooting. And he was in his English classroom, as was everyone else, just in the school, going on with their day, and a gunman armed with an AR-15 and racist rhetoric walked into the school and opened fire on his classmates. So, that was probably the worst day of my life, and from that moment, it was the impetus in me fighting for stronger gun laws in this country for the last 5 years, and that includes an assault weapons ban, universal background checks, red flag laws, safe storage laws, things that we really know and have the data for that will decrease gun violence like immediately. And of course, we have seen the pushback from the right on every form, on every platform. They'll use every reason why it won't work, but we have the data to show that it does. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And yeah, just thank you again for having me on to tell my story.
Sam, we talked on the phone a little while back, and we talked about your cousin, and I'm, again, going to extend my condolences because it breaks my heart. I know just how close you two were. So
Thank
I'm
you.
very, very sorry.
Thank you very much.
Cry already because, no one should have to be dealing with what you are dealing with what your aunt and uncle and their family and what your family is dealing with. Bill and I have these conversations so often now with people who have been directly impacted by gun violence. We could, as you know, we could probably fill a whole day with these kinds of conversations. We've talked to Fred also. And I think that it is incredibly important to point out that this reality that we don't have to accept, that is being sort of forced upon us. And you are using your voice to advocate for changes because you refuse to accept this reality, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is what you've grown up with.
that's exactly right. All of Gen Z pretty much has. I don't think there's one kid who is in our generation who could tell you that they went through school without going through a lockdown drill or a code red, probably a real one. I went through, I think, like two real code reds. There was, I mean, probably countless times when I like hid under my desk or hid in the bathroom, hid under in a closet. And I was thankful that my school didn't go through a shooting, but many kids actually do go through shootings. So, we a couple months ago in June of last summer, we staged a sit-in at the Capitol, and this group of Girl Scouts. I don't know why they were in DC, but I think they maybe were just touring the Capitol, and they walked past, and we started talking, and the conversation got on to lockdown drills and code reds, and I am not joking when I said that every single one of those Girl Scouts who were young girls raised their hand and said they have had an experience with gun violence or went under a lockdown drill. Every single, probably 30 to 40 of those girls, every single one of them raised their hand. And so that is what every single person who is a member of Gen Z is going through every single day. So, that's going to be why Gen Z is going to be the reason that the Republican Party it's just going to, I think, cease to exist very shortly here. There is millions and millions of young people who are going to reject their rhetoric, whether it be on the abortion issue, on climate, or guns, as I am talking about. But there's millions of voters who are now of age to vote, and they weren't in the 2022 midterms, who are going to reject them on the state, the local, and the federal level. And no one has done this except Republicans. We've given them every opportunity to work with us and to find a bipartisan solution. And that I find that almost it really is nothing left to talk about. There's really no more debate to be had with them. After the Maine shooting, I kind of just didn't know what to say because I feel like I had said everything that needed to be said before. Nothing I say is going to be some new argument or newfound discovery. I mean, we know what needs to happen, and we know who's stopping it from happening, and it's Republicans.
And Sam, you mentioned the sit-in. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that and how that went and who you were with? I mean, you were with some people that we know, and
Yeah.
what was the response?
So the sit-in was started when I heard the news of the Nashville shooting, the Covenant shooting, and we got on a Zoom call with just some members of the gun violence prevention community. And for the last 5 years, we had done just constant lobbying Congress, constant calling Congress, just pleading with our leaders, Democrats, to take action, and nothing was working. We saw some movement after Uvalde. It took 21 children and educators to be murdered in their school to get basically a gun bill that didn't go nearly as far enough, and it was still a major accomplishment for the Biden administration, and we're so happy that it happened, but it doesn't go anywhere near far enough, and I think we all know that. So I was kind of just wondering, what the hell can we do at this point? I was at a very low point. I didn't really feel the need to keep lobbying. It just felt kind of useless, and like we weren't being listened to. So I said, why don't we just go sit at the Capitol for as long as it will take. So I just planned it over the next 2 months. We all got together, went to DC, sat there for over. It was actually just a week, I think 140 hours of just constant sitting day and night, pleading with our lawmakers to get an assault weapons ban. And the main reason that we did it is because we still don't have the full Democratic Party united on an assault weapons ban, on safe storage, on universal background checks, which is just insane when you think about it. But that's the reality, is just that, yes, Democrats are going to be the party who gets this done, but at this point right now, they did not have the votes. So we went there and said, please do this. I mean, look at what's happening in this country. History will judge you very, very wrongly if you don't get behind this. And so, Jared Golden of Maine was one of the people who we were pleading with, and we said, please do this. And the response that we got from his office, from Senator Angus King's office of Maine, is that it just doesn't happen in Maine. And then cut to last week, and 18 people would disagree with you. So now, of course, he supports it, and it's a great thing that he supports it, but it took a mass shooting in his hometown to get him on board, and that's not good enough. So we were trying to sit out there before the next mass shooting, and I think we were successful in getting Senator John Ossoff to co-sponsor the bill, which was great. Some other wins we had the day after we left the sit-in, the House Gun Violence Prevention Task Force actually moved on all of these issues. They sent out a discharge petition, which would kind of force the House to vote on these core issues. And obviously, it's never going to happen at the time under McCarthy, but now under Mike Johnson, I think it's even less of a chance of happening. He's more of an extremist in my eyes. But yeah, no, I mean, even the Democrats in the House were doing what they could under Republican leadership, which is still great. But our main focus was on the Senate Democrats, who had a majority, still do, and they weren't doing anything, which was extremely I don't really know the word for it. It's more than upsetting. My main concern was being able to show the country, namely Gen Z, that when Democrats are in a leadership position, and they have a House of Congress, that they are doing all they can on guns, and that was not what they're doing. So it's my hope that they do something in the future. I mean, it's a great opportunity to do something. I just don't know when. So yeah.
Yeah. And also, Sam, to that point, like Golden, yeah, it's great that he's reversed his opposition to the assault weapons ban. It's unfortunate. It's awful. It's horrible that it had to impact him immediately, directly, for him to understand.
Yeah.
We don't want that to be the reality. When we have these conversations, one of the threads that always seems to come up is that everyone we talk to says, I didn't think it would happen to me. I didn't think gun violence would impact me. I thought that would happen to other people until it happened to me. And this keeps expanding and expanding and expanding until everyone is going to be touched by this, like Jared Golden, like you. There's so many of the people we've had conversations with, and we want to avoid that from happening. It's just common sense. And everyone in Congress needs to meet the American people, particularly Democrats, where they are right now, right? This coalition between moms, suburban moms, and Gen Z on this issue, to me, is reflective of how much universal support there is for doing something about this reality that's being forced upon us. Where I worked in a school, I had little kids, I was in lockdown drills. My daughter, there was someone who accidentally dialed the code for the police to come for an active shooter. So they responded like there was an active shooter. And my daughter's classroom believed there was a shooter, and there was a little girl who wouldn't stop crying. And Abby, my daughter, thought she was going to die because the little girl was so loud that she thought the shooter would find them. And that's she was in third grade. This is, again, not a reality we have to accept, but I think it's so important that we keep talking about this so that both Democrats and Republicans can hear the American people and meet us where we are.
I think lockdown drills and school shootings in this country are just as common as like a math test or a pizza party. Like, there was one of my good friends sent me. She's a mom of I think two daughters, and one of her children, her teacher sent home like what we did in class today, and this little cute graphic with like just like school graphics, and on it was we had a math test, we learned about this, and we went under a lockdown drill, just normal. That's only in this country. And it's really crazy when you think about actually, like you said, Joe, how much support there is for these issues. Fox News did a poll last summer. 61% of Americans want an assault weapons ban. That's an overwhelming majority. When you talk about universal background checks, it's something like over 90% want a universal background check bill or some form of structure to be in place. And yeah, I think the sentiment of we didn't think it was going to happen to us. I think every single person who has lost their family member to a mass shooting can say the same. My family certainly was one of those. I was 14. I really wasn't like keeping up on the issue that much. But what I can tell you is that I absolutely had heard about the Pulse nightclub shooting, which was 3 hours from my house, and the Las Vegas shooting. I had absolutely heard about that, and my family's reaction and the people around me was, that's really sad, but like, what am I going to do about it? Like, what can we do? So now, of course, like a year after or 2 years after Pulse, it actually did happen to my family. So the main thing, a huge thing that I try to say to people is please just join the fight before you can't anymore, or before you regret it, because there's so many people that I meet who have lost someone to gun violence, to a mass shooting, and they say, I didn't think it would happen to my family, and it did. So that we were just trying to tell Congress, you have to think like your constituents. You are not above this in any way. And Jared Golden is a perfect example of that. I think, when we look at, and there's so many different arguments of why this is needed and why this will work. But something that I think is very important to look at here is when the assault weapons ban passed the House in 2022, it did not pass the Senate, by the way. One Republican actually did vote with us, Brian Fitzpatrick, and not one single person, including him, lost his reelection after that. I mean, it just shows how prevalent this issue is and top of mind for people. There's support on both sides, and it's not at all dominant in the Republican Party, but it is there. And our job as Americans just has to be, when you go out and vote, get 5 of your friends to go with you, get 10 of your friends to go with you, and explain to them how this issue, and tell them about people like mine and my family's story, which we never thought it would happen to us. And trust me, my mom and I talk about all the time how much we wished we were doing this work before Parkland, and maybe it would have made a difference. Because after Parkland, we had movement in Florida. Things happened. So that's all I just try to tell people is do it before it happens to you.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on two things you said. One, you're speaking red, wine, and blues language because you're basically describing relational organizing, which is what we do, which is talking to your friends, family, people that trust you, telling them about the issue. And then also, I just want to reiterate, and Joe and I always talk about this, where I just say constantly, I refuse to go numb. I have kids in school. It would be so easy just to turn my head and try to compartmentalize that fear and those active shooter drills and all of that, but I can't do it because it's not right. It's not normal. I refuse to go numb. I will keep talking about it. Also, I'll put in the comments when we're done because we did an incredible podcast episode for this limited series called Cost of Extremism about active shooter drills. So we talked to the head of Moms to Me, and we talked to Mia Tretta, which I don't know if you know her.
I love me, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I think you probably know her. And Maddie Johnson. And those in Ashby Beasley, who we're actually talking to tomorrow. So I'll talk
Awesome.
about that too. Yeah. So it's just the thing is, it's affecting all of us. Like Joe was saying, like our kids are going through these shooting drills like it's a tornado drill. Like I grew up going in. It's not normal,
Well,
and I'm never
it's
gonna
not.
accept it.
Yeah,
So
I don't know why we treat school shooting drills like it's a tornado drill where it's just like a natural occurrence. Like, oh, we just have to do it. Like, whatever, we can't change it. It's actually laughably stupid. And yeah, I don't know why I mean, I know why the right positions themselves in that way because it's just like it's just it's the cost of doing business, and that's just bullshit. And I don't think my cousin would agree with you that it's the cost of doing business, because he doesn't have his life anymore. So the right can say every single argument in the world of, oh, but we want our guns and it's our right, and oh, but, I have good memories with my dad hunting, and all of that doesn't matter when you see how many people are dying from gun violence every single day, which is like 110 a day are dying from gun violence. And it really doesn't matter. And people have said this 1,000 times, but if the right is going to put guns over people, then the only thing we have left to do is just vote them out. So in 2024, young people, as I've said, will play a major role in doing so, because it's for the most part our futures that they're just playing with. Like it's like a game for them. It's just like, yeah, we want to make a lot of money selling guns, and if people have to die for it, then whatever. What can I do about it? um, you know, I do a lot of research on the history of the gun industry and how they got to this point of extremism, and they will use any method, any disingenuous method that they want in doing so. And the big two are racism and xenophobia. And they will just push that out there at a level that it will make you go, what are you talking about? And, there's been two, I guess, impetuses for this. One was, this is more recent, but uh, when President Biden got elected, they immediately started going, Biden's border crisis, Biden's border crisis. Look at the fentanyl crisis. Look how many migrants are coming through. And 99.9% of these migrants are just great people trying to have a decent life and make a living and support their family. And so they're gonna phrase all of them as illegals, as criminals, as rapists, and that's the xenophobic, racist part of it. Because for the most part, white people are not coming through the border; it's brown people. And when they position themselves in that way, they're saying you need guns to protect yourself from these people. And guess who can sell it to you? We can. Um, so they're going to tell you, defend yourself from brown people. What does that mean? Defend yourself. It's the most racist, xenophobic thing ever. And you can actually track the history of how they became more extreme, and I can do that if you want. But it is an insane story, and all of it is just fueled by racist, xenophobic remarks. That's literally all it is. It's just fear mongering.
Yeah. Yeah, they're inundating them with this 24/7. It's just this constant messaging of they, them, those people. They are coming for your insert variable. They will take advantage of crises in Israel to say that brown people are coming now. I mean, Don Jr. said to go get AR-15s in the wake of the horrific in Israel. And this idea of poking and prodding and angering everyone and stoking all this fear and xenophobia and racism and then arming them to the teeth. I mean, it's really creating that's chaos, right? And then in chaos, you can seize control. And unfortunately, what Jill and I always talk about, there's just I call it an animal creature. There's all these tentacles of the same beast, and there's intersections throughout all of it. And guns, right, are really the most extreme end of all of this, where if people are going to commit acts of violence where they're going to shoot a woman for having a pride flag, they're going to shoot her in the head because they've been poked and prodded with the messaging that woke is ending America, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is, there's all of this irrational stuff on one side, right? All that poking, prodding, xenophobia, stoking, all blah 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 blah, and a totally reasonable, rational, well thought out, normal, quote unquote normal argument on the other side, which is really, I'm not saying I want everyone's gun, right? I think that there is such a thing as responsible gun ownership. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that no one needs an AR-15. And again, reason, like calm, rational thought versus crazy chaos, arm everybody to the teeth with these weapons of war. And I think at the end of the day, like, you're right. I think your generation in particular, certainly suburban moms, suburban women, suburban people, suburban human beings, but people who have families, people who care about their fellow human beings, agree on some fundamentally rational, reasonable, like you said, background.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it when you said that the NRA positions it as them versus us. And when they say them, they don't mean them. They mean brown and black people. It's just anyone who's not a white American, basically. And there's actually, I think one of the first examples, and they were getting to this point gradually, but when they said the quiet part out loud was 1996 at the NRA convention, and Marion Hammer, who's just a revered on the right sort of policymaker. She was the NRA president for like 3 years. This woman is the devil. She literally is probably the reason why many people die in mass shootings still to this day. And she got on stage and she said, I don't remember the exact quote, but basically she said, too many youngsters have no good, wholesome hobbies or activities anymore. And these people are just hanging around malls and crack houses now. And you know who she was talking about when she was saying that. She was very, very clearly trying to position the NRA and the gun industry as you need guns to defend yourself from them. And, when 9/11 happened, that changed everything for the gun industry because now those racist, xenophobic fears that they were stoking exploded because people had something tangible to look at. And so, yes, 9/11 was horrible for all of America and the world, really. But for the gun industry, this was like Christmas for them. The amount of guns that they sold after 9/11 was insane. It was fueled by racism. And so another kind of famous, I don't know if famous is the right word, but well-documented NRA convention speech was by the now president in 2022, or sorry, in 2002, Wayne LaPierre. And he goes on his speech and he says, I don't remember the exact quote again, but it was like, he was objecting to the recent metal detectors in airports and like being searched by TSA, and he goes, we're doing all this to not risk offending, I don't want to say the quote because it's extremely racist, but we don't want to risk offending a Muslim person. We should just pick them out of the crowd and kind of search them because we aren't doing this. The thing that he said was, terrorists fit very narrowly in age, demographic, and ethnicity. Like, we know who's doing it. That's the most racist thing ever. Like, what do you mean by that? And so after 9/11, they were able to sell so many guns because they were just capitalizing off of this racist, xenophobic remarks. And then cut to 2005 when President Bush signed PLACA into law, which is a bill that, if you don't know what this is going to sound like a shock. But this bill literally shields gun manufacturers from all liability. They cannot be sued by cities. They cannot be sued by victims' family members who deservingly so want accountability for their family member's death. They can't sue them, and that was Bush. President Bush is doing when he promised to remake the gun industry. And after that happened, it was literally like they could do anything they wanted. I mean, imagine if when the US government was going after big tobacco and the cigarette companies for their, shady advertising to kids. Imagine if they said, "Hold on, we're going to now protect you." Do you think they would have stopped selling to kids? Absolutely not. They would have kept doing it and probably gotten way, way worse. That's exactly what the gun industry did. And so now after that, you see this whole tactical assault weapons culture that we see today that dominates the right. And the ads they started the ads that are really bad. This happened after they kind of gained immunity from being sued. It was the famous "Consider Your Man Card Reissued" ad with an AR-15. All these ads with like jacked army guys and like all this gear holding AR-15 started popping up, and it was like, you need this to defend yourself. It was like a huge, huge cultural change. And so, all these gun influencers start popping up. That was because they have total immunity. They can't be sued. They don't care. They're just going to advertise whatever they want.
The AR-15 has been used in almost all of these mass shootings and almost all of the school shootings. The AR-15, the gun you're talking about, the one that they were marketing as making you manly. Look
Exactly.
what happened now.
The NRA actually, up until that point, had a very curated image of what was acceptable. They were semi-respectful of social norms, and they resisted, for the most part, this culture that was going to take over eventually of the tactical assault weapons culture. They did not want that to be the dominant force. And then after 9/11, that's just what happened. So that is what allowed people like Kyle Rittenhouse to take his gun to I think it was a Black Lives Matter protest and shoot 3 people and kill 2 of them. So he was enabled by them. That is this theory of white replacement theory that they push, of a white genocide, of the Hispanic invasion. This is all things that they push. That is what inspired the Buffalo and El Paso shooters to commit their mass shootings and live stream them. These people really believed that white people were being replaced by people of other races, and that the gun industry gave them not only the weapons, but they advertised it in a way that made them think that. And it was just, if you're an American patriot, you need a gun to defend yourself. They linked patriotism to arming yourself with assault weapons. And 9/11 just did that for them. They blew the door wide open. And the effects of that are, we see it every day. Maine, Parkland. I mean, I could list off every mass shooting. That's all the effects of this culture that was just brewing for years, decades even, and now it's just out of control. So the only way that we can really fight against that, because I mean, I'll be honest, we've tried everything. We've tried literally everything, and nothing has worked. The only thing we have left is to just vote. Sounds simple, sounds stupid, but that's really all we have left. At the end of the day, we know we have the facts and data to prove that bans and stronger gun laws work. In 1994, when the assault weapons ban was in place, mass shootings fell by 43%. And when the ban expired, they increased by 243%. When people say that more guns equals less gun violence, I kind of laugh a little bit, because we have close to 400 million guns in this country, and every year that the number of people dead by guns goes up. So I'm kind of wondering when the guns are going to make us safer. But we have the data to prove that it works. And anyone who's in opposition to this is you just support people being killed. That's literally it. There's no other way to frame it.
Yeah, guns are now the #1 killer of children in this country. And it's not all mass shootings, right? It's also the safe storage issue.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
also
I'm sorry. I was just
suicide.
gonna
Go ahead, Jill.
talk about the culture. Like you mentioned kids. I'm like, this gun culture is out of control because you're talking about the marketing of AR-15s. they are marketing them to children. Like they actually have one that's smaller that a child can hold. And then also, I saw someone mention in the comments, and I know this from personal experience, is that we have school board members that are campaigning at a shooting range. So they're trying to get on our school board and they're campaigning and fundraising at a shooting range. That is crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
that is crazy. And you know, I think just after the assault weapons ban passed the House, I started seeing this graphic go around called the JR-15, like the Junior
Yeah.
15. And at first I was like, that's bullshit. That cannot be real, right? They would actually not advertise that to a 2 to 3 year old. Oh, it's real. Like it's get one like your parents. Like it's and you're thinking like, so a kid who can't walk yet, who can't speak English yet, doesn't know how to read, is going to pick up an AR-15 and defend his family with it. They want teachers to arm themselves. They, you know, and it's just it all goes back to creating fear. Here's the cycle. I'm gonna lay it out. Our weak gun laws transition to more gun violence, which then transitions to them saying, "Look at all this gun violence. You need guns to defend yourself." So now they are selling more guns, and then the profits that they just made with this fear that they just put out there, they're going to put into Republican lawmakers to buy them, essentially. And then the cycle continues over and over and over again. Weak gun laws, more gun violence, more guns sold, fear. They put the profits back in the Republicans. It's the cycle that has been dominant for the past 20 years. The only way to take a link of that chain out is we need stronger gun laws. That's literally it. So yeah, it's a bad issue.
It's an exclusively American problem. Other countries, like in England, they had a gunman who killed 16 people in 87, so they banned semi-automatic weapons. You know, and Australia, Canada, they have, you know, they took measures to do something rational and reasonable, because they said, okay, wait, this isn't a natural disaster. We don't have to just accept that this is going to be our reality. And something that I think is so important about these conversations is that it's what we talk about all the time, is that, again, we don't have to accept this as our reality. This is not rational. This is not reasonable. There are solutions. So, because I don't want it coming for me. I don't want to spend my mornings dropping the kids off memorizing their outfits because I'm worried that something horrible will happen to them. It's very reasonable, again, to say, if a gun is so menacing that an entire police force armed to the teeth with tactical gear and shields won't engage with it, it's a very reasonable thing to say that gun probably shouldn't be in anybody's hands. And there are so many, like I said, so many rational, reasonable things we can do. And I do believe that we have the power here. I think we just have to harness it. We have to understand. Again, we have more in common on this issue than people realize. And there are reasonable things that we can do, because in the wake, I thought for sure after Sandy Hook, I thought for sure after Parkland, I thought for sure after Uvalde, that something would snap and something would change, because Americans had enough. And your generation instead has had this be your reality forever. So much so that I saw a study that once a week, if not more, you guys, your generation, worries about a mass shooting. I mean, again, this is not a reality we have to accept, and we need to take that power back. But the number one thing we need to do is keep talking about it, because I have peers who, in the wake of Maine, were like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. I can't think about it. And then just dismiss it out of hand. And that's a place we can't be. Because if this, like Jill said, if this becomes normal, then it will just happen more and nothing will happen. And we are in a moment right now. I really do feel like we are at a moment, a pivotal point, where we can actually change it. No, don't you think? I know you think so.
I totally believe that. I think that 2024 will be the year that young people finally usher in this new age of American politics that people never thought would be there. Young people have been counted out by all these like pundits and political commentators and analysts, and no, like everyone was like, "There's going to be a red wave in 2022. Like it's just going to happen," and then that just did not happen. It was like a red little droplet. It was nothing. They gained 5 seats as a majority in the House. I mean, that's just stupid. Young people will be the reason why the culture shifts. We are a generation that does not take bullshit because so much of it is thrown at us. And we are not going to sit here and just let them roll over us. We're not going to let them put profits over our lives. We're not going to let them make us a number. And Joe, when you were saying that it happens every week that a kid fears for their life, at the sit-in, I met people who actually went up and told me that they not only have been into mass shootings, like survived 2 mass shootings, but they every time they go into a building, they check for the exit sign. So if in the event of something happening, they know where to go, which is that only happens in America. I mean, in no other place in the world is a economically advanced country with the GDP that we do having these same issues. I mean, it is just stupid. Another thing that happened at the sit-in was, we were sitting out there for a week. We met all kinds of people. People on the right who would give us the bird and tell us we're stupid, and then people from Australia, people from New Zealand, people from the UK, people from all across Europe who were like, I'm here visiting DC. I saw what you guys were doing. I cannot believe that you guys haven't done anything. Like, what, it's been like over 40 years of just mass shootings constantly. And I'm like, tell me about it. For my whole life, it's been like this. And they go, and I start talking to them. I'm like, do you guys have like assault weapons in the UK? Like, what, like, do you even have handguns? And they go, no, everything is banned. Like, we don't have guns. And I'm not advocating for that, but I'm saying that they just don't have guns in that country. It's not something that they're thinking of. In Australia, the culture was the same as it was in the United States. People were on horseback. They were cowboys. They had AR-15s, assault weapons. That their culture was the same in America, as it was in Australia. And after one mass shooting, these people were able to put people's lives over guns. So it's not even just like we've never seen a country do it before. I mean, people a lot of times they go, well, if we give our guns up, if we let them ban it, America's just going to turn into Nazi Germany, and they're going to start knocking on our doors. And it's actually insane, that notion. I mean, that's part of the fear that um they're going to prescribe you, and they're gonna feed that fear with more firearms. It's just not true. It's not factual. Australia and the UK and New Zealand did not turn into dictatorial, tyrannical governments after they took measures to save people's lives from guns. I mean, it's laughably stupid. Um,
Yeah, I pick up on the Australia thing, but while you're on there, in fact, in Australia, they went after 96, after a massacre in 96, they went from a mass shooting once every 18 months
wow.
to one in 26 years.
I did not know that statistic. Wow.
If
I don't.
only we could do
I
something. If
mean,
only there was something we could
Well,
do.
yeah, I mean, something that we do have to realize is that, I don't like babying the Republicans, but sometimes we just have to hold their hand and say, okay, come on. A lot of times when we're talking to people on the other side who don't agree with us, you do have to realize that they like guns not because people are getting killed, but because they have really fond memories of going hunting with their parents, of being gifted a gun, a hunting rifle, or of some kind. It's an emotional bond, with guns. As weird as that might sound for people like us, that is a real thing. Like in Middle America, people go hunting with their fathers. That's just like a rite of passage. So when we talk about gun control, it's like we are infringing on their way of life a little bit, which is not what we're trying to do. We're really just trying to save people's lives. But you do have to realize that that is something that is a factor here. And what the NRA and actually Donald Trump was able to do so well is to see that there was this passion for guns out there that could be, just linked with gun rights, and putting guns above all else. So they were able to recognize that millions of people across the country, could become single issue voters, like purely on gun rights. And the only thing more powerful than that was someone saying, I'm going to come take your guns. So, that's going to inspire them to vote. But we are not calling for a gun ban. We're calling for an assault weapons ban, which you just don't need. And there's so many examples of other countries who don't have assault weapons. They don't have the issues that we do now. And the other thing that's just so crazy, I sit here, I think about this sometimes. When Republicans say they need the guns to hunt, which they do all the time, they the landscapes that they're going to hunt in, that the Republicans support, they don't. Those landscapes will be gone within X amount of years because of climate change. So I don't like when Republicans say we're defending our hunting rights and we want to go hunting with these guns. They're also supporting candidates who literally don't believe in climate change. So they're not going to be able to hunt in the forest. Like it's just not going to happen soon. Like the animals you're hunting are just going to go extinct at some point. It's just stupid. So yeah, I mean that is a factor here. Just understanding that some people, the guns are just very emotional for them. Like it's weird for me to imagine that. Maybe weird for you to imagine that. It's definitely weird for me to imagine that. I can't imagine getting emotional over seeing a gun, but it's a thing. So we kind of have to just say like, hey, listen, we're not trying to take your guns away. We're just trying to save people's lives. Here's the statistics. Here's the data. Here's why it works. And if there's still an opposition to that, bye. I don't know. Sorry. It's just I don't know. Sorry.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so
we
Sam,
have to
let
have.
us know, what are you planning on doing in the future? And then also, where can people follow you, like on social media, and get involved in the work that you do?
So right now we haven't like gone public with it, but we are planning. Before I say what we're doing, I really don't like sitting around and waiting for stuff to happen.
Mhm.
So when I get on this live and I say young people are going to be the change, they're going to usher in the change that we all want to see, and they're going to be the reason why it happens. Um, I want to make sure that that happens. So I'm going to try to make it as close to a 100% certainty as possible. I don't like, when I was, I don't know how old I was in 2016, probably like 10 or something. Um, I was watching the news. I mean, I wasn't awake for the result of it. My mom would leave me a note in my room the night after the election saying who won. And in Florida, the governor, it was always a Republican. And I would wake up being like, damn, that sucks. But when in 2016 happened and Donald Trump won, I thought for sure that Hillary was going to win. I mean, I was like, it's a guaranteed thing. Obviously, I was like a little kid at the time and I couldn't do anything. But I do not want something similar to happen in 2024, where I'm on Twitter and I'm talking all my stuff and I'm like, this is what's going to happen, and then I do no work to actually make it happen. So what we're planning is so last summer we went on a bus tour with Change the Ref. And the people who founded Change the Ref are these two incredible parents, Manuel and Patricia Oliver. They lost their son Joaquin in the Parkland shooting. And I mean, these people are like my inspiration every single day. They lost their son in a mass shooting, and it's their every waking moment they're thinking about what can we do differently to change the narrative in this country. Patricia just wrote a children's book. Like in the style of Goodnight Moon, but like as my Joaquin's first school shooting. It's very sad. I mean, I can't really read it because I just start, getting emotional over it. But that's the kind of mentality that Change the Ref thinks, and they're pushing boundaries. So we went on a bus tour with them last summer. We stopped at 23 different sites of mass shootings across the country. It was not hard to find sites of mass shootings. We literally could drive in a straight line and find it, hundreds of them. Um, but we went to like the biggest, more nationally known ones. And the sentiment in red and blue states across the entire country was that people want you to vote. The parents who had lost their kids in these shootings, they said, I lost my son, I lost my daughter in a mass shooting, and I want you to vote now. That's how I want you to honor my son, my daughter's legacy. When we went to Uvalde, they said, I want you to vote. My child will never be able to vote. This is going to be how my child lives on, is through change, and so that no one else has to pay the price. So, I recognize that we saw how many people wanted action to come. So now we're planning another bus tour, but this time we're not stopping in places where mass shootings have happened. We've done a lot of research and talked to a lot of analysts about the toss-up districts in 2024 for federal, and basically what that means is that the district is purple. It could go in the Democrat or the Republican way, and obviously you want that to go the Democratic way. We only have Republicans have a 5-seat majority in the House, which is a very, very slim majority. As we're seeing now, they are incapable of whipping votes, and they cannot keep their people in like they don't. It's like they don't have a majority. It's what it looks like. But more on the it's just pretty funny. So we want the majority to be Democratic, obviously, so we can get to work on passing safer gun laws. So we're going to be taking a bus around the country and stopping in these districts that are currently held by like a insane MAGA Republican who believes that women don't have the right to decide about their own body, who believes that climate change isn't real, and a plethora of other lovely issues. but we're going to be stopping in these districts, working with the Democratic candidate who is running to flip the seat. And by that point, the primary will already have happened in most of these states, so we're not like picking a favorite. But yeah, all of these Democrats in these districts, they're not nationally known. A lot of times, like no Americans know who they are because they're not even elected yet. But these are the districts that are going to change America. I mean, it's only like a handful. It's like 17 to 18 districts that will decide the outcome of America for the next 2 years and potentially longer because normally people stay in power for a little bit of time. These are the districts, and most Americans don't know about them because they're not famous. They're not Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're not Adam Schiff. They're not Matt Gaetz. They don't get national attention because they're not in office yet. But we want to shine a light on them and say we support them as a country, as a Democratic Party, as a national force. So that's why we're going on this bus tour. It's not announced yet. I mean, I guess I'm talking about it publicly, but it's still a work in progress. If you guys follow me on Twitter at samschwartz03, I'll be putting more updates there soon. But we hopefully want to go public with it January or February. We started planning it over a year out so that, you know, all the kinks can be ironed out. But it's just, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I think needs to be happening. Our goal is to obviously flip these seats, but it's another part of it is to register young people and people in general who aren't registered yet, get them turned out to vote. You know, I have a very big, it's not really a theory. I mean, we've seen it in 2022 that when young people take action in leadership positions, it inspires other young people to come out and vote because it's shown that it's possible when you do it. That's kind of our hypothesis or theory here is creating a national movement, a momentum around supporting toss-up district candidates who are going to determine the landscape of America for the next 2 years, 10 years, whatever. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're planning. We're still early on, but when the time comes, I would like to like formally announce it. So yeah, well, I guess we'll stay updated. But yeah, it's a lot of work, but we're trying.
Wow. I was gonna say thank you, but yeah, Joe, go.
I mean, this is, I'm going to wrap up with it. Like Red, Wine, and Blue, we talk all the time about how it's when you identify a problem where you're like, oh, I wish I could do something about this thing and this guns or this big thing, right? You can. We give you lots of ways. It's not one size fits all, but there's a problem you can identify and there's a solution and there's a way to get there. And it's not like you said, it's not like, oh, this is so sad. I don't know what am I going to do to change it? We all have that power. You're seizing on that power. Red, Wine, and Blue is definitely seizing on that power. And this is how we change the world. This because we can't just say that's a problem and then offer no solutions or pathways to it. And I think that this conversation obviously proves, as many do, that you don't have to just say, put your hands up and say, oh, well, what am I going to do? You are doing it. We are doing it. And others are out there doing it. I mean, and we have to keep doing it.
If you look at major movements in American history, historically, they have all been led by the people who are the most affected by them. So like the civil rights movement were led by Black people who were the most affected by the issue. The women's rights movement was led by women. The Million Mom March was led by moms. March for Our Lives was led by students. And yes, other people were helping them, but it's led by the people who have the most stake in the game. So when we're talking about 2024, I mean, I think I made a tweet about this yesterday, but I'm always thinking to myself, how can Republicans not see what's coming? I think it was last year, I don't know when this happened, when they overturned Roe, when the Supreme Court was ruling on no more affirmative action, when they ruled to not protect LGBTQ rights in any, they can't go in any store they want now, I was sitting there going, yes, this is obviously terrible, but they're essentially digging their own grave deeper and deeper, which with each insane legal theory that they pass now. And so they've royally pissed off pretty much every single demographic of person in this country. And it's not that they've acted on guns, it's that they haven't acted on guns, which has made so many young people so upset. And when you're talking to a generation who has literally hid under their desks for their entire life, they're obviously not going to keep supporting the party who made them do it. So in 2024, we are going to see young people kind of rise up. I think between 2022 and 2024, there's a couple million, I think 8 million is the number of people who are newly, who have newly come of age, who are not registered to vote yet. And when we talk about a place like Texas, which I want to be a big part of our tour, it's a historically red state, and everyone thinks about Texas as this very red state. I do too. Um, when we talk to like Olivia Juliana and about a lot of the people who are living in that place, they go, no, this can totally be a blue state, as crazy as that sounds, if we get enough people turned out to vote. And so that's the Latino population in Texas, who a lot of them don't even really know that they're eligible to vote. And I think the Democratic Party does a very poor job of messaging and communicating to people in these places like Florida, like Texas. In a lot of ways, it feels like they've given up. The people in those communities have not given up, but mainstream Democrats, it kind of feels like that a little bit. So our tour, we want to kind of unite the country. We want a national movement behind it. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys for having me on again. And we're doing all we can. And I want to thank you guys for your work too. Because it's, as we've seen, it's not just young people that are fighting. It's the mothers too. So, and that's the most important thing, is that we have everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you everybody for joining. I saved these conversations on our IG account, so you can go back and watch it, share with your friends. Sam, I'm sure this isn't the last thing we will be doing with you. I'm so glad we connected.
Yeah,
And then tomorrow we will be talking to another incredible activist, Ashby Beasley, who I think you're friends with. I think that's at 1 o'clock, and she's a friend of Red, Wine, and Blue too. So we're just going to keep the conversation going. So thanks all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.